Bob Estes. I'm a lawyer here in Fayetteville, and I represent the applicant in the rezoning proposal that will be before your city council this next Tuesday. With me this evening is Alex Eisen. Alex is also an attorney. He is from Aveue, Texas. He has a private practice there, and he also represents Campus Crest, your applicant in the rezoning proposal. The civil engineers that are involved in this project are Jorgensen and Associates, and Dave Jorgensen is with us this evening, and his son Blake. As you know, this is our second meeting with you. I recognize some new faces, and I thank you for attending and for being a part of what we're doing. Rather than make a more formal presentation as we did during our first meeting, what we would like to do this evening with you is give you a status report, report to you where we are, and then just have a question and answer session and attempt to answer any questions you may have. If we don't have answers to your questions, we'll do the best that we can to get back to you and answer those questions. This is a rezoning proposal. As you know, the property is the sale barn. Billy Joe Bartholomew's family has owned the sale barn since 1930. Billy Joe just walked in, and he's also with us this evening. The property is zoned I-1. That means industrial use, light industrial, heavy industrial. That means that at this point in time, Mr. Bartholomew's family can cite anything there that fits into the permitted use in a I-1 district. You remember bakery fees? Anybody recall bakery fees? I was on the planning commission with bakery fees. It's very permissible as a permitted use. It's a matter of right for bakery fees to come back in and cite their facility on sale on property as it's now zoned. The proposal is to rezone that portion of the property that is I-1 to what is now called downtown general. The remainder of the property is RMF 24, as is the greater part of the surrounding property. Those of you that own homes in this area, if you went and looked at the zoning map, it's more probable than not that your property is zoned RMF 24. A portion of the sale barn property is zoned RMF 24. So the proposal is to rezone that portion of the property that is now industrial use to downtown general. Alex would have to speak to how long this process has been ongoing. It's been, what, 3 years, 3.5 years since you first looked at the property. It has been several months since Jorgen and Associates were hired to begin the engineering work. We have got some of the rough preliminary drawings here for you to look at. We can take those down if you want to, and you can pass them around and let you look at them to give you a notion or an idea of what's going on. What I would like to do this evening is I would like for you to presume with me that there will not be a bakery fees on the sale barn property. I would like for you to presume with me that it will be down zoned from I-1 to RMF 24. And then together I would like to have your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions, your criticisms, your critiques. In other words, at the end of the day, presuming with me that it is down zoned from industrial to downtown general, what would you like to see there? What would you like for it to look like? We're available to answer any questions. We're available to hear your comments and your suggestions. So I tell you with that, if we could just open up the floor and just have a dialogue and let's talk. Would it be your pleasure for me to take those boards down and you can kind of pass them around? I could just give you one of them and you could look at it and pass it to your neighbor. Would that be something you want to do?
Thank you very much for introducing yourself. Ralph, would you mind opening the official meeting of the Town Branch Neighborhood Association with prayer, as we always do?
Sure.
I'd appreciate it.
Holy Father, we come to you this evening with gladness in our hearts that we have this freedom and this right to come together to discuss our city and the progress of it. We pray that the things that are said here this evening will be in accordance to your will We pray that we will listen with open hearts and open minds to both sides of this discussion. We pray that we may, in a Christian way, come to a meeting of minds with one another. We pray that you look down upon us and forgive us of all of our sins, is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen.
If I can add something, as Bob said, my name is Alex Ives, and I'm the Regional Development Partner.
Hey, excuse me, Alex, would you come up here and
Yeah.
speak where there's a microphone, people can hear you better and they'll be able to pick it up.
Okay.
That's a mic there,
Okay.
if you want to speak.
As you can see, there's several various conceptual drawings. I realize that there's probably many people, not all, who are just outright opposed to a student housing project. But if those tonight want to make comments, I'm not naive enough to go back to the city and say, this is what the neighbors and I have agreed to. I would never do that, but for those that maybe can see that at some point in time, whether it be this year or 5 years from now, this be multifamily, now's a chance to say, Alex, don't put parking here, or don't put your entrance right across from the cemetery's entrance, or move this. So I'll just kind of float around. I know people are extremely hesitant. I've done numerous meetings like this where they're hesitant to make suggestions and say, we think you should move your detention pond here, because I would take that as an endorsement. I don't. You can still stand up next week. You know, the city council has their first reading of this. First of what I understood could be up to 3 next week. Again, if you do have any design inputs, all I do is build student housing. I don't build a park. So any questions about alternative uses tonight, Mr. Bartholomew's here and can answer those. Or if you have any direct questions about the company or what we plan to do, I'll answer those. But I don't have a formal presentation. I won't take up your hour. I understand you all have another business meeting at 7. And if you want us to stay, we'll stay. Otherwise, we're planning to leave. But if you have any questions or concerns, yes, ma'am.
Are these 4 different concepts?
There are 4 different concepts. Just to tell you about our business model, I'm trying to put 192 units. How they're configured is up in the air. I do need a clubhouse, and there's a certain number of buildings, depending upon the height, that I need to put on a tract. And how that's done, where the entrances are, all that is subject to everyone's review. I'll point it out again next week. If the rezone is approved, that's still just one hurdle in this process, because that doesn't mean that I can then start building whatever I want. As everyone knows, I still have to go through and go work with the city and go through the large-scale development plan. Everything gets scrutinized at that plan. Your traffic official gets to look at traffic. Your city planner gets to make sure that I'm building within code. There are still whole city departments that have to weigh in on this. And that's why I don't have a plan to say, this is what we want to build, this is what we have to build. Right? This is literally, these concepts are changing as of Friday. 2 of them I saw for the first time today. It is still a work in progress. So that's why I say, if we could all speak candidly and say, Alex, don't face your buildings this direction, or move your parking here. That could happen. Whatever we take away from tonight, we obviously at some point in time have to firm this down when we go to a large-scale development plan. But as of now, it is truly conceptual. And so feel free to make comments if any of you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify things in my mind. I've kind of been following this in the paper, but not real closely. At present time, you would have to have it rezoned before you would take ownership of the property, or is it? And also, the other question is this also area that is being looked at for expanding the VA, the cemetery?
First part of that question is, I currently do not own the land. I won't get into all the contract specifics, but the Bartholomew family still owns it. I will say that obviously before we could ever build, it has to be rezoned. Part of this tract is already multifamily. On one of those drawings is a colored diagram provided by the city. The cemetery is already zoned multifamily. Part of the Bartholomew tract is zoned multifamily. The part adjacent to it is downtown general. That allows multifamily. the part to the south. Everything else allows multifamily except the cell barn. Part of it is a little island of heavy industrial, or I-1, heavy commercial. Whether there is cemeteries involvement, Mr. Bartholomew can answer all that, but I will say that it was not under contract by the VA. Apparently he hadn't been approached in some years. If I'm wrong, correct me, that the VA or anybody on their behalf has never made an offer to him, and to this day has never made an offer. And even after the public meetings, he's still never been contacted. Obviously, it's a seller's market if they come in and make a deal with them, but at this point in time, we have the land under contract and would like to develop it.
So there's not anybody in this room now that's a representative of the Friends of the National Cemetery?
I don't know.
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay,
Okay.
I wouldn't know. Up until the planning commission, I never talked with anyone from the cemetery. I think there were some comments made at our initial meeting as that would be a better long-term use. And whether Mr. Bartholomew, it's his family's tract. I just approached him as a seller and said, let's make a deal. It didn't happen overnight. So this has been a year and a half of negotiations. The land's been there since 1936. Anybody else could have got under contract. And so I'm, you had your hand up for it. Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
No,
You mentioned if any other use would be in the offing. Well, I don't know of any that's really in the offing, but there was some suggestion in the paper that if the Walton Arts Center could forget about Interstate 540 north or south and seek out possibilities such as the old sale barn site for a Broadway show-sized theater, whether that be more visionary and intertwining for that property instead of adding to the glut of large box apartment mega complex. Please ask some questions, people. Thanks for your consideration. Well, I didn't know about this until a week before this meeting came up, and didn't know that until it was in the paper. I'd heard the rumor, but that was it. So I don't know how it was publicized at all. Anyway, get back to what I want to say. I don't like the idea of an apartment building being placed on that property. It's just, we've got enough apartments in this town. We're running over with apartments in this town. I know Mr. Bartholomew would like to sell the property, and maybe he doesn't care who buys it. But there are neighbors who do care who buys it. I have lived within blocks of this cemetery all of my 72 years except for 1 year. And I buried my husband up there last July. And the idea of an apartment building shading his grave site is an abomination to me. And I think there's more people in this community that would come forward if they really knew what was going to go on. We fought this business of the Hill Street thing, and the first thing fell through with that. And in my opinion, the second thing is even worse than the first one there. I know that many years ago, probably 20 to 25 years, that was grandfathered in for the sale barn. And that has really nothing to do with it, but I was under the impression that before it was grandfathered in, that there was some people interested in expanding the cemetery that way. I don't know if that's true or not. I just know those two facts.
Yes, ma'am, could I speak?
Yeah, I don't know you.
The cemetery is a great thing for the community, there's no question about it. The veterans, we need to take our hat off to them a lot more than we do. But all these years, you're talking about Walton Arts Center or somebody goes by, or it's been in the paper, or, they never approached me, okay? Never anyone. And I'm the owner of the property. You'd think I'd be one that might know a little something about it. The veterans have come to me in different times talking about they'd love to have it. I said, well, I'd love for you to have it. And the only thing they could ever come up with is they'd love for me to give it to them. And I told this at the meeting before. I wish I could. I'd love to give it to them. But under circumstances, I've got other family, I've got people, I've got obligations, and I just can't do it. But and there's never been an offer from the veterans. I do understand that that they had, don't have all the money in the world to operate with, the government don't help them all that much. The mayor said that right here at the last hearing we had. And you know, I don't know why, but that's the way it is. And so I just want to get straight that the veterans, it'd be nice, it'd be wonderful, but you know, they've never approached with a bid of any type to buy the property. You know, I don't know what else to say on that. I know everybody says it'd be wonderful for the veterans to have it and the cemetery. I say the same thing. The only thing is I've got to sell the property, and I'm going to sell it to someone in the next fall. I also saw a statement or in the paper somewhere that they'd love to see me keep it to 2020, and they might be able to come up with the money. Well, you know, I wish I could do that too, but under the circumstances, I'm gonna have to sell the property to someone.
Well,
And so therefore, I checked these folks out that we're talking about buying it.
I'd like to suggest everybody call Bozeman's office. I called up there, the first thing I heard, and told her, you can call the local office, and if you want them to, they'll put you through to Washington from your office. You don't have to spend a dime to do it. Anyway, so I called them, and she referred me back to Tim Wiley, something like that, the local office, and he was just right down hateful to me. And he says, well, the government can't buy it, the government won't buy it, and all this. I said, it's private property, we won't own it, we won't, you know, we can't do anything about it. I said, yes, like GM, and I thanked him and hung up. You know, it's just ridiculous that they, of all the money that seems to be floating around Washington, they can't come up with something to buy that for these veterans. You know, it's not just the World War II veterans, it's the Korean and the Vietnam and the ones that are fighting and dying right now that need a place to be buried. And it's just terrible that we can't do something more about it.
I think you're 100% right. You know, only thing is I think you're talking to the wrong people. I think you need to be talking to the government. You know, their people's going to have to bring this on. The veteran says they have no way of coming up with that much money. The government could buy it in the New York second. They waste more than that every half a second, every day.
Exactly.
And I agree 100%. But see, I'm sorry, but I ain't got any control over them, and that's where your money's gonna have to come from. And if you folks would bring that up with them, it would be great, because I'd rather for the cemetery to have it. If you can get that done within a reasonable amount of time, but I haven't got 10 or 15 years to wait. You know what I'm saying?
What price are you asking, Mr. Bartholomew?
What is your price?
Well, that's not to be a public, it's not public knowledge right now. If you folks wanna make a bid on it, why, it'd be great.
Well, you said you're under contract, but
Yes.
there's very little way to know what the goal for fundraising would be without some kind of ballpark figure. What were you talking to Bozeman about several years ago?
Well, see, there never was a price brought up because they weren't interested. Maybe if they were interested, they didn't have the money, I don't know. I hate to say they weren't interested, I'm sure they were, the figure. But you know, it's just not public knowledge right now, because the business is not sold until I have the money, okay?
Right.
So I can't, you know, go peddling on the price. It's under contract. If everything goes through, the property's sold. If it doesn't go through, then I gotta go to plan 2, and like I said, I'm going to sell it to someone. And I'd rather see this type of situation as some things that could go in there that is zoned. Right now, it's zoned to do that. I could go sell it and wouldn't have to have a meeting or anything. Just get the money and go, just like you could your home, you know. And I don't know how you'd like for not be able to sell your home if you wanted to sell it until you went through the whole city planning and all. You know, I mean, everyone's got to need to have a few rights too. You know?
Yes.
But the way it is now, I don't own anything because I can't sell it if it passed. Okay.
May I say something? And I have never said this in a public forum before, and I may become somewhat emotional as I speak to you at this time. I am a decorated Vietnam combat veteran. It was 65 years ago today that my father left England and disembarked at Calais, France. He enlisted in the United States Army as a private E1, and he was discharged as a lieutenant colonel. As I stand here to speak before you this evening, I have two brothers. One is a major in the Army, and the other is a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. One of them is in Afghanistan, the other is in Iraq. I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for this notion and idea that we should expand this veteran cemetery. But I will tell you this, is one of the things that I fought for in Vietnam was I fought for this man's right to be able to sell his property unencumbered to anyone that he chooses to do so for the highest and best price. And I will also tell you this, is I am somewhat offended by some of this discussion that I'm hearing. Because if we accept it, and we endorse it, and we embrace it, it means I fought for nothing. It means my father fought for 3.5 years in Europe for nothing. It means I've got two brothers, one in Afghanistan and one in Iraq, that are fighting for nothing. And I am offended by that notion and idea. At the same time, I take great sympathy with this notion and idea that we need to expand this veteran cemetery. But don't do it by suggesting that this man give away his property. And don't do it by attempting to take away from this man his inalienable right to sell his property free and unencumbered to anyone that he wishes to for the highest and best price.
I
didn't
don't
hear
hear
anybody
anyone
say
said
that.
that.
I don't hear just
No
since I only
one's
have,
questioning your patriotism or Mr. Bartholomew's right to sell. The question is, what do we want up there? Ideally, in an ideal world, we want the cemetery to be expanded, Mr. Estes. And what we need to do is have a realistic fundraiser here and a goal. And I believe in America. I believe in American people. And if we know what we're after here as a prize, but as a phantom figure, now let's be realistic. We also know that the sale of this property is means that you can get it rezoned and pushed through. Otherwise, it'll trump, and something else will go in there if given the opportunity. So we can't, if we have fundraisers or whatever with the VA, somehow we've got to find a price. I guess we can do that after the meeting.
I think,
But I believe given a period of time, that money could be raised.
well, I think everyone's sentiments, I suspect, are probably the same. But since I have no control over that, what you raise, all I can do is say, look, we've been an open book. Next week I'm going back to the city. Within 2 weeks or so, I'm going to have a site plan locked in. I'll agree that y'all are opposed to multifamily, but all I'm here for tonight is if there's anything you want to talk about, trail or access or site details, we'll listen to them. Other than that, that's between Mr. Bartholomew and your group or fundraiser, because again, I work for Campus Crest. This is what we do. And yes, sir, you're in the back. Sorry. And I missed you. I'm sorry. I'll come back to you.
Mr. Estes, Mr. Bartholomew, I'm Jim Huffman. I pastor Christ Church down here on 15th Street, 525 West. And we bought that building 20 years ago from the Masonic Lodge folks and have made it into the property that it is now. I've been pastoring that group of people 22 years, doing everything I can to try to help the south end of town, whether it's giving away groceries or whatever. In the 80s and early 90s, I was heavily involved as a member of the Sons of the American Revolution to raise the money for the expansion that the National Cemetery has enjoyed on 2 different occasions. Very, very heavily involved in that, and I'm very proud of it. And my father-in-law is 90, and he's a World War II vet. He'll be very good. There's absolutely no way we can raise money to buy that property. It'll take millions of dollars, and there is absolutely no way we can raise money to do it. And realism is maybe the only thing that I have going for me, because I don't have any deep pockets and I'm not real smart. But I know when you try to raise money, but it's keep a little church going, or whatever. But our community is, we just don't have it. We just don't have it, we can't raise it. I haven't seen any elevations, I don't know what they wanna put up over there. I've talked to some of the city council people, and they'd like to see it come in as one of those planned zoning districts or whatever it is. I don't even know what that means, but that's what the city council members have told me that I've talked to personally. And if that's what you fellas need to do, I'd encourage you to look that direction. Having said all that, I really do want something here that is going to help the economy of the south side of Fayetteville. This is where my heart is, it's where my livelihood is. And I think we've heard a lot of scare stories about college kids vandalizing cemeteries and stuff like that, and I just don't swallow that. Most of the vandalism that goes on is 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, it's not college kids. The disposable income that these kids are gonna have over here is gonna help the south side of town. There are gonna be some real traffic problems, I am concerned about that, and I've talked to Brenda Field about that even today. That is my biggest concern, is the traffic problems. She said, well, there are very limited things that the city council can do to decide whether or not this goes in. I think that we need to deal with some reality and just lay the cemetery aside. That ain't going to happen. We can't raise the money for it. And let's deal with the reality of what kind of zoning do we need, what kind of traffic controls do we need, especially of government. Those are the kind of issues that I see. And whether or not you fellas buy it or whoever buys it, I don't know, Mr. Bartholomew did get a fair deal out of this thing. And, you know, I would much rather have an apartment complex of college kids with all disposable income coming in than to have another apartment complex that's going to have people that my church is going to have to help pick up the slack to take care of. And so that's where I am.
Thank you. Yes, sir, you have a question?
Well, part of the problem here, I mean, we've got a complex over here for 800 students. They're not there yet, so we don't know how that's going to impact the neighborhood. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have, within another year or so after that, if this goes through, we'd have another 500 students. Have you really thought about how these students are going to access?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I need to make it available, and maybe Mr. Shepherd and I can talk tonight about some using his talents and blog spots. But we had a traffic engineering firm come out when school was in session and traffic surveyed the entire area, and they came up with recommendations, and we took the recommendations. Based upon their recommendations, if we connect into the trail system, which we're going to do, just shown there. If we, on government, where it connects to the north, there's no center line, there's no turn only. They make some recommendations. They make recommendations to sidewalks, curbing, various improvements. If we do all that, they say we'll have minimal impact. Now, the way they base this, they have a joke that they're out of Little Rock, they work for the city, they work for the city of Conway, they work for private people. They're very, very good at what they do. They say everybody with a driver's license is a traffic engineer, and we all feel that way. We all say, oh, you're going to turn this way, this way. After their 70-page report, if we take what they say, it'll be minimal impact. The main reason is, if I was building an office building, I said, you have to be here at 8 a.m. and leave at 5, traffic would be significantly different. It's peace. College student traffic is entirely different. Yes, our 8 a.m. classes, there are 9, there are 10, there are 10:30, various. And so our traffic is spread out. We don't have 500 residents at 8 a.m. running to campus. I get that in every city. And then I have a traffic engineer stand and say, that doesn't happen. And I have a city engineer who looks at our traffic report and says, these guys are right. So all I can say is there are engineers who have put their seal on it, who have done their homework, and it goes beyond just me telling you, no traffic. These guys have done it. If somebody wanted to get a traffic study of their own and show that these guys are wrong, it'd be great, but they're right. The city will look at that, and the city may come back and say, okay, Alex, in order to have traffic, you need multiple entrances. And if you look at our conceptuals, that's why we have multiple entrances. Traffic needs to be funneled to the south and then out and up. not on Government. And I think that's what we'll have.
South via which road?
South via 11th, and then cut over and go up. So
To
it's
11th?
better if I show you. Well,
Well, if I could ask a question, we go to the neighborhood.
No.
Look at the maps.
no, not go from the neighborhood.
11th Street is the neighborhood.
Well,
11th Street doesn't go,
11th Street goes to school.
oh, you mean 11th Street to
11th.
South School?
Right.
the South School. Yeah, there's no homes. There's only 3 businesses on that frontage. Yes, sir.
Are you buying the land next to the bus station too, that connects with 71?
No.
That's not going to?
No.
Okay, is that also part of this though area? It's,
belongs to my dad,
okay. That's why I didn't know if you was gonna try to at least make a connection to 71 Highway.
No. There'll be no direct connection from our side except for what Bob's showing. We won't be building new roads across private property.
I thought that was all.
You know, there used to be roads that crisscrossed through this tract, and at some point in time they were all abandoned, and they went through the same public forum like this. So yes, sir.
I guess, well, I guess here's my major concern though, is that right now, I think, I haven't done a study on this, and maybe Michelle has it, but, I think at least half the people in this neighborhood that own the homes that they live in. And I guess what I see this is going to do, 800 students renting there, and 500 renting there, and the noise that's going to bring, is a lot of people are going to choose to sell, and then it's going to become purely rental. So I see the neighborhood as being threatened by this development. So that's, you know, I hope you can understand why I'm resistant to this.
I totally understand, and I attend these meetings often, and this is not the first city where we've gone in and we're adjacent to a residential neighborhood. You know, we built next to churches and schools, and everybody has various concerns. I think the impact's going to be extremely minimal because the way we build. It's not Animal House. I get that often. We operate it. It's going to be extremely well maintained. People try to make analogies of us and other multifamily properties, and that's an unfair comparison. We have people on site 24 hours a day who live there. It's different than traditional multifamily. The distinctions are many, but we have quiet hours, things that other just basic apartments don't. Who will rent anybody? We do criminal background checks.
Alex, excuse me just a minute.
Okay.
Could we ask everybody to hold your question, not for somebody who comes to you out there, but for whoever's up here talking, and this way we can record all these conversations. What you guys are saying, each of you, is important that you get to say it and have it recorded. So let's focus on this man for the moment, and then we'll get back to some of the other questions. Thank you.
I guess to summarize the traffic, I'll make available our traffic report. It's 70-something pages. Anybody who wants it, I'll send it to you. You can take it, you can scrutinize it, the city will look at it, so it's there. It is what it is. As far as whether your home values are going to go down, I get that question a lot, and in other markets where people have opposed us, or just somebody had that same question at an early neighborhood meeting, there hasn't been anybody in real estate or anything to back it up. In fact, anytime you put in a new expensive development, like the pastor commented, that brings in other development of various natures. And so I don't think you're going to have that problem. But of course,
I'm not sure we want other
no, I don't mean multi like that. It could be numerous. Yes, ma'am.
I do want to make a comment about traffic. I know we just summarized that, but I do have one more question. One of these drawings has the entrance on the west. And in my opinion, if this goes through, the only appropriate entry is off of Government.
Amen.
That is the only appropriate entry. There should be no ingress or egress through our neighborhood. And then one other thing I'd like to say is that I know that we can talk about students and their behavior all day long, and you can't paint everyone with the same brush. In my mind, it isn't really about the age of the people who live in this proposed development. It's the fact that there's 500 of them. And so I do want that to be part of the consideration. And I know that I think Jim is correct. We do need to keep our discussion on the facts and the reality here. But why does the development have to be student housing? I know that Fayetteville Forward that many of us participated in. We did a lot of talking in our city about the need for single family or even mixed use, some single family, some duplex, some multifamily. There are ways I think we could work together that would not involve 500 bedroom student housing.
Okay. I can answer both those parts. The single entrance, the first rough conceptual I presented to the city was a single entrance. That's what we built. If you look at 90% of our other projects, we build single entrance gated. We came here and the city said, you can't have security gates, you can't have security fences, okay? And the city is who's pushing us to have multiple entrances. If everybody in this room agreed, and our traffic engineers agreed, and everybody said single entrance, that's what I would go back to, because that's what we build. But other people are making us have multiple connections, because the 2025 plan talks about cross-access and multiple access points. As if people in driving from point A to point B are going to start bisecting this track. But that's where we are now. They want traffic funneled through there, across there, and down and out. And you can see that. I mean, but yeah, I prefer to have a single access, exactly what you're talking about. But I think city planners and else are going to say no.
I wasn't at the first meeting, but I was just curious, do you have any other housing in Fayetteville or Northwest Arkansas? And the other question is, did you guys look at statistics to see the need for student housing prior to this, and especially with the expansion of Hill Street? And then the type of student housing. Having been a grad student a few years ago, I know the university doesn't have any graduate student or family housing. And I think that's a great need. Of course, the university needs to address that. But I think, to me, if a company would come in and provide something like that, and I find that typically graduate students, most of them, especially they're coming in for a professional higher degree, they're a little more responsible. They're more focused on their studies. That's the same way with families, there's a little more responsibility. I still have qualms about 500, but, so statistics.
Yes. We have 20 properties up and running across the United States. We've got many more under construction and more than a dozen in this stage of development and pipeline. We didn't just drive into town and say we think this is a good market. Obviously, the size of the campus is important, but we look at I know the enrollment trends for the past 20 years at this university. I know what they're projected. I know what nationwide enrollment is across the U.S. I know that in economic downturns, enrollment in universities go up. I mean, we've got all the market studies that we have outside consultants. And I'm not playing with my money here. I'm not even playing with all my company's money. We have outside investors. They bring in their people. They have to bring in their own outside real estate appraisers to make sure that the land is of a value that I'm paying for. Those investors have their boards they respond to. It's not just myself and my brother, this is our company. It doesn't work that way. We've been looking at Fayetteville for over 3 years. I've looked at, I say every tract of land within about a 1.5 mile radius that's more than 8 acres. Show me an area and I can tell you who owns it. I looked at the Hill Place. I know all about the history of that tract. I've walked it. I know tracts around it. I know tracts around this neighborhood that are for sale, that aren't publicized. People have come to me since 2 weeks ago and offered me other parcels of land. And of course, I'd already seen those. So we did our homework, and that's because we have to, because this is an expensive project, it costs a lot of money, and we have to dot our I's and cross our T's. So yes, I feel like there is a need. And the second part is there a need for other student housing that the university doesn't offer? Graduate housing, of course, having graduate programs is important to us, law school, all those things. And yes, the trend in student housing is what we're talking about now, privatized student housing. Because universities aren't able to keep up with what students want. Students want, like what we build and what Hill Place and other competitors build, are your own private bedroom with their own locking door, your own private bath, your own private walk-in closet. That's what the modern college student has grown up with, and that's what they pay for. Community baths, nobody is building community baths anymore. College dorm I had, 4 guys and I shared a bath. Nobody is building brand new projects like that are getting a lot of attention. So this is not entirely unique to Fayetteville, but if you go to other states, we're in multiple other states, so our competitors, and this is just what people are building. This is what the student want and will pay for. And I can show you pictures of everything we built ad nauseum. I could post some of them. You can go to gogrove.com, our corporate website, and see all of our projects. They're attractive. They don't turn into junks in 5 years because it costs so much, and our lenders watch us so closely that we have to maintain them at a certain level. That's the only way you get a return on the investment. We don't flip them. In this business, you can't afford to buy and flip them. We've never built one and sold it. And when I say flip it, that means build it, sell it to somebody else. They operate it, and in 5 years it gets run down. The only way our portfolio looks good is if we manage it in-house with our own management company, where we have control. We don't have to go ask somebody else or say, we got a problem. We'll go call Houston, Texas. Now, Houston, Texas is going to refer you to this guy over here. No, it's our people who live there who take care of it. So it is different than most others. Yes, sir.
Well,
I was going to get the gentleman in the back. He had his hand up a long time. I'm sorry.
If I might make just a few points. I don't know if you're aware or not, but the University of Arkansas is building on a lot of the parking lots, and the overall plan is to bring students to campus. So they're going to continue to build more and more apartment buildings on campus. If there's an apartment building built over here at the sale barn with the existing student over here, the natural trail is going to be right through the National Cemetery. That's where it's going to happen. I was a college student. I drank and partied. That's part of it. It's going to happen. Multiple egresses into the property. The city's going to require them. You've got to be able to get fire trucks in there. Are y'all going to improve all the streets out to major arteries that are going to be able to get these bigger fire trucks into your apartment complexes?
We have to improve all the streets along our frontage that service our property. And yes, the fire marshal, as part of the large-scale development, is we have to get their blessing. And that's typically where the multiple entrances come up. Actually, the Uniform Fire Code, which most cities adhere to, in Fayetteville, anything less than 200 units, you only have to have a single access. We have less than 200. But the city, as part of the big term, long-term plan, wants more access. But fire safety is always an issue. I mean, when we go to prospective tenants, we're leasing to them and their parents. We can't say this is a dangerous, reckless place, come do business with us. It doesn't work that way. They walk on, our property has to be clean, it has to be safe. People are savvy enough to get online, check with the police department and say, how many calls have you had to that address in the past year? And students do that now. And as such, we have to maintain it at that high caliber or else we don't stay in business. And this isn't, like I said, this isn't our first one. We know what works and we know what doesn't work. We know that if we have students that are causing problems, we have to get them out. I mean, what multifamily does, criminal background searches, credit searches, makes them sign a contract, and if you get warnings, you can get kicked out. That's a term of release. We do monthly air filter checks and certain things that allow us access into the residences to make sure. And yes, have we found things going on that shouldn't be and kind of expel those residents out? Sure. Does that happen in all the rental homes and stuff? Maybe not. You know, a lot of times you don't see what's going on. So we do, all I can represent is that we really, really manage our communities well because we have to. And if we don't, everyone's going to do it for us. They're going to watch. If we start having a lot of parties, it's going to take one phone call from you to fix it. So that's what happens. Yes, ma'am.
One phone call is not fixing
No.
Well, okay.
So you have,
That's a city problem, and I can't.
you have a property in Jonesboro, right? That's the only other one in Arkansas?
You answered. In Arkansas, it's the only, well, we have one in Conway that's under.
That's in Conway.
Yeah,
So you
Jonesboro.
talk about police log and police
Yeah.
report. I saw the minutes to a city meeting, and in that minutes, it said that there was 148 police calls in a 3-month period at the Jonesboro, your Jonesboro complex, from August to November of 2008.
It doesn't look-
148, so you don't call that very many?
You know, to be honest, I don't know how many we normally get. Jonesboro, there was a huge fight one night that
Yes, I
that was
do know that.
publicized. The night of the primary elections, when Obama received the nomination, there was a celebration that turned into a riot, and there was what's been alleged police brutality, and there's ongoing litigation not involving us, but involving some of the residents. and you can
That
read
was
about
one
that.
night, they
Yeah.
were talking about the
That was one
3-month
night.
period, and they wanted a new ordinance just because of this property and these were notes from the city. It wasn't something I was looking at.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, you can go on there and read that. Of course, our other 19 properties haven't had that issue.
I've got lots of different things I've read
Oh,
on
sure.
all kinds of issues.
Well, I mean, anyone can get on these websites where students can post things about apartments, and no happy student gets on there and says, "Oh, I had a great experience."
Actually, they
You
did.
know, well, some do, and we love those, but those have turned into where you get on there and say, "Well, they didn't fix my internet on time." So there are dozens of those. But again, what we're asking for is a down zone and a site plan. We can. I mean, I can't fix your police department. If you're getting calls on my property here and somebody's not responding to it, that's something that needs to be addressed at the local level, the city level.
How are you
So,
going to keep the students out of the cemetery?
well, you know, what we've done in other markets, and it's not a part here because we're not next to, well, we are next to a cemetery in Huntsville, Texas, actually, is tell them that if they're caught trespassing, which it would be trespassing if you're there after hours, then that's a violation of city code and they can get expelled.
Actually, this national cemetery is open 24/7 for people in grief who want to go there, so.
Well, then I guess
that wouldn't work.
I don't know. I'm open to suggestions, since I don't know how to, if it's open 24 hours and they're there and they're not breaking the law, I don't know why you keep them out. But, you know, we talk about college kids doing this and that. They're going to stay next to the pool. They're going to stay in the sand volleyball because that's where all their friends are. That's where they're hanging out. Are some of them going to jump a fence every now and then? I hope not. You know, we had this concern when we built next to a private elementary school in Aveue, Texas. It hasn't happened. We've had this concern when we built next to other churches, and it hasn't happened. So all I can say is I hope it wouldn't happen, and if it does, all we can do is then make efforts to correct it.
Alex, let's let the lady speak.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I was looking at one of your diagrams, and it seems as if you're encroaching on the cemetery that's just south of the federal cemetery. I didn't know if you were aware that there was a cemetery there. And your driveway, it seems as if you're cutting across it.
All I can say is I'm not aware. What that is based on is the legal description of Mr. Bartholomew's tract, which he owns, of which there's no cemetery, anything, and we're building within that. We obviously can't.
Kind of like your roadway. You have
Well,
a road there and started to the right.
Oh, all that is on our property. All we have is entrance drives that lead
There's
on.
an oak cemetery that's south of
This
the
is,
National Cemetery.
let me point out, she's talking about the property just to the south of the National Cemetery. What year was it founded? Do you
It
remember?
was there before black people could be buried in the National Cemetery.
And some black people are still being buried there, right?
People are still being buried
Some
there.
families are well
The name of the
represented there.
cemetery is Oak.
Yes, I know a
And so
lot.
I see your driveway, the street you're planning on, surely not making part of the cemetery. for the street.
No, we're not building
I don't
any
think
public
so.
streets.
I'm just looking at your drawing.
Yeah.
No,
And I
take it
didn't
back.
know if you were
No,
aware
sure.
that there was
No,
a
he wants to
cemetery
come
behind
up.
you.
Showing where it is.
We are only staying within the footprint that is the cell barn now. We're not building any additional roads.
Well, I just thought it was
That's a contour.
All we're going to do is connect to the existing public streets that are there. With, of course, the city's going to come back and say, okay, that street that has no curbing, you have no sidewalks, put sidewalks. So we have to improve all the streets. But no, we're not going to. I can't build anything on somebody else's property, especially over cemetery.
Let me try to be responsive to what I think is your question. That dotted line that shags off that we discussed when I showed you the phone board. Mr. Jorgensen tells me that's a contour line, an elevation line, that's not the road, that that's an elevation line that shows the contour.
Except that there is a road. It looks like a road. It's not really one, but it looks like a road that would make a really nice shortcut for someone who didn't want to have to make a left turn onto.
Where is that?
Well, let's see if we can get some definition, because I want to answer your question. You want to come up and show us where it is, or let's see if we can answer your question?
Why don't you bring
Y'all
me the
should
thing?
go out there and look and see where
But
it is.
I guess that gets back to the one question you said you don't know how to recall students out of the cemetery, but I have a lot of concern about that road being used as a shortcut.
I guess let me see this road if we all kind of look at each other. This is,
This is the National Cemetery, this is the Oak Cemetery. And right here, on this boundary line, there's a little road going right across here.
Yeah,
That
that's
exit,
true.
there's 11th Street here, and this is government or national event. So I have concern about that.
I watched.
That's right, that cuts across, you don't have to go around the block.
if it's private property, it should be on there. If it's public, I don't know how I can police it, just like I can't when they go down the street. No, I can't. Well, first off, everything that's not in color, I have no authority or control over. All I can do is talk to the city about what's in color. I can't say, hey, I wish I would close off west because that helps me, or I wish you would open up, block 16. I wish this electric company here would let me drive through there. I can't. I have no control over that. So you're right. I don't know if people start using it. I think that's why the city's pushing the trail up to the north. Because
And I know I'm asking a lot of questions, I just do want to ask one follow-up one. Has there been any discussion about why there has to be 500? Can we not talk about a lower density?
Because that's what we build, to be honest. There's a number, a margin number, where in order for us to afford the land and construction, we need this many students, and that's our number. Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you help me get commercially zoned so I can open my house into a restaurant or something? Because it's gonna dump right in front of me.
I can't, but I'm sure you can find good lawyers or civil engineers. We laugh, but in Denton, Texas, it's on a very, very busy highway, and Taco Bell is looking to the side, and they had some it's a Home Depot right now. And Home Depot is closed, and we're gonna buy Home Depot. And Taco Bell was like, oh, we have a big vacant building behind us. As soon as they found out we were coming, they were coming, because we're gonna walk to Taco Bell. So I don't know anything about your track, but for next.
Where's your property
That's
at?
right there on 11th Street.
You're on the corner, right?
Right across the street from that second entrance, on 11th Street, where it dumps out my house.
What's your last name?
She's on 11th Street where you said that there were only businesses.
Miller?
Is it a home?
Right
Let's see which
behind.
one.
Yeah.
It's her home on 11th Street.
Should be this one.
One block from. It's already zoned. Well, it's on there. It's already zoned.
Downtown General, I think.
It's either already zoned multifamily or downtown general. So I don't know what that tells you.
That be a restaurant? Feed 500?
I don't know. I don't know what else it was. I just know that it works for us. I don't know what downtown general allows a restaurant.
They do.
These guys have helped you. They should be. Yes, ma'am.
To the quality of your buildings and your site development. In Fayetteville, we're trying to establish some low-impact development ordinances. We have soil issues, slope issues, and efficiency in building. Green building construction is a big topic in town, and the city is looking for LEED construction in their government buildings. I suggested to the Hill apartments that they have more eco-friendly rooftops, lighter color ones. They ignored that. Would you explain or elaborate if there are any environmentally sound site development plans, low-impact plans, or any green building plans?
We can talk about.
Yeah, sure. I know you probably can't zoom in with your eyes real well, but just a quick history on how these plats have laid out. When we first came to rezone the property, we decided we wanted to go with RMF 24 because, as you can see, the bulk of this beige color, that's all RMF 24.
Is that our neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, our neighborhood is a single-family neighborhood.
Okay, I'm just saying the
That
zoning.
is inappropriate.
I'm not talking.
I just want to point
Okay,
that
that's
out.
fine.
So you can go on and say that
Okay,
it's gonna
well, that's
match.
industrial
Doesn't
right
match
there.
the neighborhood.
That's current zoning. That's not what we do. That's what the city.
I know, I'm
This is what the
saying
city's
it
adopted.
doesn't match.
Okay, moving on to the downtown general. That's blue right there. And we thought RMF 24, although it is single families around it, we thought just from the zoning maps that was appropriate. But the city, with their 2025 plan, is trying to develop neighborhoods to where the buildings hide the parking behind. And so with the arm of 24, you see the parking going around like this. We went to downtown general with the city's suggestions. As far as the low impact development, we're working right now with the new ordinances they're trying to get adopted and whatnot. Their packet went out, last week or whatnot. And we're trying to adopt some of them, but since it hadn't been fully clarified yet, what we're going to do is try to pursue something that is much more manageable. I did some of the stuff out in Colorado, some of the low impact development things, and we always had the problem with maintenance, and I never did get to see the full life of these some of the products that we had out there to see them truly develop. So I know one thing we're going to try to do is simply install a water quality capture volume pond. It's the first flush. Basically, these simple summer showers you get, that's where a lot of your particulates run off from the your rooftops, your driveways, and we're gonna have a sand medium filtration down at the bottom, and that's gonna help filter out some of the contaminants, and then we'll be able to release it. Obviously right now it's a trough next to I guess waste, livestock waste, whatever word you want to use. You know it's out there, but we're going to install that there. The trail's been situated such that it's right on the edge of the canopy, and I know we had talked about trying to prevent from getting inside that riparian buffer, and that's why we've placed the trail such as that it doesn't encroach upon that buffer zone right in here. So we're going to try to maintain that buffer, and obviously during construction, I know one of the main concerns was where is the traffic going to come, and I know there's a lot of dirt on the streets right now, and we've already discussed trying to funnel the traffic mainly just to this area so that it doesn't get into your neighborhoods. And
11th Street's what you're talking about.
Correct, yeah. 11th Street right here. So hopefully we can utilize the major arterial right here and then just access the property at this point. But as far as low impact developments, we just hadn't got that far into it. When we get to the large scale development, we'll be able to try to employ some more of those tactics. And there's a lot of new products out there that we're starting to try to incorporate. So I think it will come up though.
What about your buildings?
As far as the buildings, the only thing we've done is put the footprints on here, and we haven't begun to discuss that.
I won't call them green at this point. I think when you get into a 3-story building, you're going to call it green. There's not many guys doing that yet. Obviously, with every year we build these, we try to find ways that are cheaper, less waste, wood, and things that we have to pay for. But I'm not going to tell you it's green yet. I think we're going to make our efforts. I know I can get control of my construction traffic because those guys will work for us and tell them where to go. But it's not going to get a green star or a super green rating yet, as we're seeing a few commercial buildings are. So I'd like to say I'm super green, but I'm not. But you should rest assured that Fayetteville has some very restrictive ordinances already in place.
I help get them in place.
That's one of them. I mean, that's what y'all should rest assured is that I can't just. I mean, you should see some of the cities I go to. There's like you can do whatever you want. I do the same thing, but you can come in and build it. It's scary, but here it's very progressive.
Well, but when your buildings are inefficient and they are using more energy than they could be using if they were built more efficiently, we, the taxpayers and the residents of the area, pay for the coal plants that go in and pollute our air. We pay the taxes, and then we have to pay the health cost. So when you build an inefficient property, you're hurting us. And so I want you to keep that in mind, because I don't like subsidizing with my health and my tax dollars somebody else's profit. And that's what happens when you do not build efficiently and you do not look at every avenue you possibly can.
I understand. I mean, I live in a house that's 50 years old that has this much insulation. I mean, there's probably things we could all do. I mean, these lights, this is an extremely inefficient type of
But
construction.
you're building new,
I'm
and
building
you can
new.
build it right.
That's right. There are things that every year we try to do. When you talk to consultants about different thermostats, and I'm trying to control things, but at this point, I'm not gonna say it's clean and it's as clean as you can get. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. You had your hand up in the back.
Yes, sir. Lawn sprinklers, irrigation.
Oh, well, we have both. I thought you meant fire. Yes, we have fire, and we also have landscape irrigation.
Okay. All you gotta do on your landscape irrigation, instead of trying to filter the water in or funnel it back into the ditches and run it off, we harvest it.
Sure.
Bring it into underground. I can give you information on it. It's very easy to do, and we can use it to apply back to the irrigation and save you the water bill of the city. We're not using that water.
We discuss things about separating gray water and black water and those type of things, and that's not going to be in these buildings. That's going to be in the
This is
next
not gray
generation.
water. This is not.
This is
black
just.
water.
I understand. Well,
This is harvesting.
harvesting. Well,
Totally different. Very easy to do.
Using it for
Now's the
irrigation.
time to do it, if this goes through. What I'm hearing here tonight is, you know, the first thing you come up and you ask us to visualize that this has already been rezoned. Well, it hasn't.
you're right.
Mr. Bartholomew does have the right to sell his land, and, you know, I wish that he would. And, no, Mr. Estes, would you move back? Mr. Estes, would you move back out of my face, please, sir?
I'm sorry, I thought you offered us a document.
I did, and I'll deliver it to you in a minute, but your grandstanding and, lawyer tactics are not appreciated.
Amen.
I don't work well whenever my train of thought is interrupted. Building this, that property is not suitable for student housing. We've already got student housing over here. It's sprawling out into the community. Students are a problem. I don't care what you say, they are a problem. I would encourage everybody to go to the city and, you know, just basically all we have to do is just not change the zoning, and the project's dead, you know, without the zoning being changed. It's just, you know, it's just not an acceptable place to put the property there. So I don't care what you say, if that's built, the students are gonna travel over to the other apartments here. There's gonna be beer cans in the National Cemetery, and it is just that. It is a national cemetery. It is for everybody in this country. I have an uncle there. I have friends out there that fought in the Vietnam War.
Again, those are sentiments that we've heard several times. And I was asked to keep it under an hour. I've gone over. I'll continue to answer questions, but I was instructed that at 7 p.m. y'all needed to talk about just that properly. And so, but I'm still open to any site issues, or at least learning more about what you have. And I'd have to get some of the construction, but to go back to green, we pay the water bills and we pay electric bills. So we don't build cheap thinking somebody else is going to have to pay that. We pay it all. So if we don't insulate, if we don't do things, I'm still having to pay to write that check in the hand. So we are conscious of, if we have a sprinkler head that's broken, it's shooting water 40 feet up in the air for 3 weeks until the city gets on us. No, we have to fix it because that's all coming out of our pocket. And again, we pay all the utilities for all of our properties. So we are mindful and not wasteful, because if we leave the lights on stuff, that is coming out of our bottom line. Just to be honest. So, yes, sir.
We could have just a couple of your minutes. I represent the Regional National Cemetery Improvement Corporation. We're the group that's bought the land from private owners and given it to the government in order to expand the cemetery. Please don't count us out yet. You know, we don't have a great big truckload of money, and I wish we did. We'd give it to you tonight and we'd end this thing. But the federal government will not buy any additional land for a cemetery. That's a given. Okay, so what happens in 1984, a group of friends and veterans here organized this RNCIC, and been successful so far is buying up some of these small lots. What we really like to have is, of course, the sale barn, you know, and I guarantee you, our neighbors would be the quietest folks you've ever saw. We're not involved in environmental, we're as green as anybody could get. So, now, granted, if the project doesn't go through, I don't know if we have enough money or can get enough, but I guarantee you, we'll surely try. And that's all we can ask.
Well, thank you very much for that. Just, Butch, is it? Yes, sir. Butch? Yes, thank you for bringing that and contributing that. I want to say something about conditions of approval. These are things that you would face at the city if it were approved. And I guess all of us have some we'd want. We've heard about no traffic down the small streets. I'd say no traffic on out to the just all traffic you'd like to have down to school on 11th, not going down west, nothing else. You could do that for the students by having a left turn only if they come out of there, sign, and somebody would have to enforce it. So I think the neighbors would be calling the way I do about the dump trucks and things that come off of this site over here all the time. Sometimes you have to call. And but during construction, these guys can't see that their contractors go only that way. Once it's done, it is a lot tougher to do it with the students. But you can make that, and the city could make it a condition of approval, and you guys ask for that, and that will get you certainly some credit in heaven, if nothing else. But there are other things about the watershed. First, the land on the northern slope, mostly we talk about the south slope from this part of the neighborhood, but back there it's the north slope. Water goes to the creek that comes off Dixon Street in downtown. It comes by the library and it goes right by the end of this property. And there's a lot of wetland out there. The cows graze on it. It's really good. Grows good grass, doesn't it? And partly they help fertilize it. But the main reason is it's got water under it, and it absorbs water, and it helps prevent flooding downstream. So on this property, you shouldn't be digging a rain garden. You should be simply saving enough of that wetland off toward the riparian zone that it could soak in, which it does now. There's not massive runoff in this property. And if you do it right and see the construction doesn't send a lot of red dirt and yellow dirt debris down there, then that would be good. That could be a condition of approval. I can show you places around town where people put in red dirt, fill wetland, and then dig a pit in it to hold stormwater. And you're like, how did the city approve that? And why did they figure out what kind of soil they had before they did that original filling of the lake? All our yards down here are natural rain gardens, all down this south side. The water soaks in. And some people say, oh, it stands there for several hours after it rains, but it soaks in. It doesn't run over to the neighbors. It doesn't run down into the creek rapidly the way it does if it pours in the street. So ideally, the street should be higher, and the street water should go off into that soil, not dump the roof house gutter water into the street. You see it running down driveways. That's because the gutter doesn't go in the grass. So all these things you can do is they're talking about green development and some of the ways to think, because that information's out there. It's not just this old man making these things up, things I've liked for years, but now it's really popular. And so over here, there is shown a pit there. I bet you can get back away from doing that pit if you simply minimize the parking here and redesign a little bit, because that's a lot of parking. A pit over here. And if they are where you catch water before it goes off, that's sort of a rain garden, isn't it? You're catching roof and street water. So instead of having a raised place, it should be the natural slope down. Actually, if I understand right, Mr. Bartholomew owns the lots right here, which is a wetland lot. You've got a little stream runs through it, and you better buy that and let it absorb some water. Because if something's built on it or it's paved over, then you won't have that. So that's a condition of approval as possible. But we know that street's a bad one. So you can keep them off during construction. You can't keep any, you know, you can put signs this way and that, and I think it'll help. But you can't guarantee they won't go through the neighborhood. So folks that live on those two streets to the south are not going to be satisfied. Those are just a few things to think about that I was noticing looking at the plans. Let's go back and see what else somebody else has important. Somebody who hasn't spoken, you have a question or a comment? Something new? While we got these guys?
Hey, before everybody takes off, Aubrey, I just wanted to thank the church for opening their doors. Scott Gage kindly, on real short notice, said, "Yeah, you can come on down here. He's got something to do." And I don't know if Mrs. Gage is here, but he said that she would lock the doors up or let us in and lock the doors up. So we want to thank everybody for coming and in the church for opening their doors for us.
Yes, we're very, very grateful, and Ralph came down from his house and brought his wife, and they've been the host for this. Anybody else? I want to invite people who are interested to stay to talk about a few other concerns. It has nothing to do with this project, just what's going on in the neighborhood for just a few minutes, okay? Folks at the door, could you stay just a few minutes and let's talk about a few other things related in the neighborhood. Thank you.